Caroline Age in English literature, spanning around 1625 to 1649, is distinguished by its unique historical setting and literary traits. The Caroline Age in English literature, which ran roughly from 1625 to 1649, is distinguished by its unique historical setting and literary traits. Following the Jacobean period and bearing the name of King Charles I of England, this era is distinguished by a transitional stage that reflects the changing socio-political climate of the time. The Caroline Age was a reaction to King Charles I's rule, which began in 1625 with his accession to the throne. The emergence of theological issues and differences, as well as obstacles and tensions between the monarchy and parliament, arose with the reign of this new ruler. During this time, political and social discontent reached a high point with the outbreak of the English Civil War and its immediate aftermath. Thus, the literature of the Caroline Age depicts this atmosphere of ambiguity and transition, providing insights into the changing literary genres, subjects, and issues that evolved as England reached one of its most important historical turning points. Cultural and historical background. Political challenges and conflicts. The Caroline Age's cultural and historical context was shaped by complex political issues and conflicts that served as the catalyst for important changes in England. The increasing hostility between the monarchy and parliament was one of its notable aspects. King Charles I tried to enforce his royal privileges, while parliament wanted more power and influence. The monarchy wanted to preserve its previous dominance while parliament attempted to establish its influence in the decision-making process. This struggle for dominance ended in a lengthy confrontation. These conflicts sparked a constitutional crisis and a subsequent power struggle that eventually led to the English Civil War. Thus, the Caroline Age is seen as a turning point in English history when these smothering political disputes started to emerge and change the country's direction. Impact of religious divisions. The continuing religious struggle that had been a defining feature of prior times had a profound influence on the Caroline Age as well. As England struggled with the coexistence of several religious faiths, religious disagreements and debates persisted during this time. Religious identity and political allegiances were closely linked, and the schisms between Catholics, Protestants, and other Protestant sects remained unsolved. The competing influences of Puritanism and Anglicanism were particularly significant. The established Anglican Church faced a threat from the emergence of Puritanism, which was distinguished by its emphasis on reform and more stringent religious practices. The conflict between these two religious opinions widened already existing societal fault lines and made things even more polarized and unpredictable. Religious conflicts had a significant influence on the Caroline Age's literature because authors grappled with issues of religion, morality, and power in the midst of this turbulent religious atmosphere. Read more: Reformation in English literature. Literature of the Caroline Age. Metaphysical poetry continuation. The literature of the Caroline Age carried on to expand on the works of the earlier Jacobean period, notably in the field of metaphysical poetry. This peculiar literary form, characterized by its intricate metaphors, depth of thought, and study of abstract ideas, found continuance in the Caroline Age. The works of poets like George Herbert and Richard Crashaw were influenced by the tradition and impact of Jacobean metaphysical poetry, which was epitomized by authors like John Donne. These poets continued the metaphysical philosophical tradition by exploring spirituality, the human condition, and the intersection of the heavenly and the earthly. Their poetry demonstrated deft wordplay and deep philosophical reflection, representing the intellectual and spiritual fervor of the time while introducing fresh perspectives to the continuing conversation started by their predecessors. Read more: Metaphysical poetry in English literature. Cavalier poetry. A unique literary trend known as Cavalier poetry evolved during the Caroline Age, expressing a different aesthetic from the time's metaphysical poetry. Cavalier poetry mirrored the ideas and beliefs of the royalists who supported King Charles I and was distinguished by its lightness, humor, and joyful tone. The poetry frequently reflected themes of carpe diem, or seize the day, highlighting the fleeting nature of life and its joys. Poets like Robert Herrick and Thomas Caref were influential members of this movement. Herrick's poems like To the Virgins, To Make Much of Time, serve as the perfect example of the carpe diem theme, which urges readers to seize the transitory chances presented by life. The mood of cavalier optimism and courtly elegance was also present in Caref's poetry. Cavalier poetry captured the spirit of the Caroline Age's social and cultural context and offered a lively counterbalance to the period's more reflective philosophical writing. Drama and playwrights. From the previous Jacobean era, the Caroline Age saw a change in dramatic approaches, as well as a major shift in the kinds of plays and performers that graced the stage. The Caroline era saw a change towards a more balanced approach, since the Jacobean Age had been distinguished for its investigation of difficult moral quandaries and psychological depths. Tragicomedies, a unique genre that combined tragic and humorous aspects, became more popular. These plays used both emotional and hilarious moments in an effort to represent the synthesis of human emotions. John Ford's The Lover's Melancholy, which mixed themes of love, lunacy, and wit, is a perfect example. Additionally, Caroline theatre had a reputation for courtly entertainment, which reflected the sophisticated tastes of the royal court. A layer of extravagance and grandeur was added to the theatrical environment of the time by productions like James Shirley's Masks and Entertainments, which appealed to the courtly audience's thirst for spectacle and refinement. This shift in dramatic idioms reflected the Caroline Age's shifting tastes and provided spectators with a wide variety of theatrical experiences. Read more: Jacobean period in English literature. Prose and essays. In the Caroline Age, prose and essays provided a potent platform for commenting on the pressing political and ecclesiastical issues of the day. In order to address the issues at hand as tensions between the king and parliament grew, authors turned to writing. They conveyed their opinions on issues of government, human rights, and societal order through writings. One such instance is John Milton's The Tenure of Kings and Magistrates, in which he argued for the legitimacy of removing oppressive rulers and set forth ideas that would later resonate during the English Civil War. A significant impact on prose writing was also caused by the Civil War itself. As the conflict unfolded, prose works started to capture the intricacies of the conflict's aftermath, the difficulties of re-establishing society, and the moral quandaries that people on both sides of the struggle confronted. As a result, prose works turned into a reflection of the troubled times, portraying the Caroline Age's intellectual and emotional landscapes in a way that was both instructive and thought-provoking. Key themes and characteristics. Political and social unrest. Being on the cusp of the English Civil War, the Caroline Age was profoundly influenced by themes of political and social upheaval. The literature of the period was pervaded by growing hostilities between the Crown and Parliament. Writings like John Milton's Areopagitica show how authors wrestled with the ambiguity and fragility of the political situation. This piece, which defends press freedom, is a reflection of the political unrest of the time and the fight for individual rights in the face of escalating repression. The literature of the Caroline Age also explored power dynamics and societal issues, reflecting the nuanced interactions between rulers and subjects as well as the moral conundrums that people had to deal with while navigating a society that was in turmoil. The works from this historical period provides a glimpse into the complicated emotions and thoughts of people coping with a period of profound upheaval and uncertainty. Reflection of religious debates. The literary discourse of the Caroline Age included discussions of religion often, reflecting the ongoing social divisions. Both poets and prose authors discussed religious ideas, shedding light on the period's many theological stances. George Herbert's poetry, particularly the poems in his book, The Temple, is an excellent example of this interest in spiritual issues. The poetry of Herbert examined the intricacies of spirituality, the human experience, and the battle to balance worldly reality with heavenly truths. Similarly, prose works like John Bunyan's allegorical novel, The Pilgrim's Progress, provide a vivid illustration of religious questions. Bunyan discusses salvation, temptation, and the challenges of faith in the metaphorical journey of Christian. This topic resonates with readers from varied religious backgrounds and reflects the religious diversity of the time. Thus, the literary works of the Caroline Age present a tapestry of theological viewpoints, illuminating the intricate interaction between religion and society dynamics during this transformative period. Carpe diem motif. The timeless, carpe diem, theme, which urges people to grasp the day and cherish life's transitory moments, was adopted by the literature of the Caroline Age. As the Civil War approached and society struggled with political and religious unrest, this motif struck a profound chord with the angst of the day. This philosophy was captured in the writings of poets like Robert Herrick, especially in poems like To the Virgins, To Make Much of Time, which urged readers to enjoy the moment. Herrick's verses serve as a gentle reminder that life is transient and emphasize the value of savoring the moments of happiness and pleasure. The Caroline Age poets captured the spirit of life at a period when nothing was definite and emphasized the value of the present moment through the use of the carpe diem motif, which resonated with both the personal and the collective. Notable figures of the Caroline Age. The Caroline Age included a number of notable figures who had a lasting impact on English literature and culture. King Charles I, after whom the era is called, was an important figure of the period. His reign, which was characterized by political upheaval and religious strife, had a significant impact on the topics and issues of literature of the time. Famous poet and clergyman George Herbert is renowned for his profound philosophical poetry that examined the relationship between spirituality and the human experience. His The Temple series is an evidence of his capacity for blending devotion with creative expression. Significant Cavalier poets like Robert Herrick and Thomas Carlyle made their mark on the thriving poetry scene of the time. Carlyle's poetry emanated courtly elegance and reflected the refined attitude of the royal court, whereas Herrick's rhymes represented the carpe diem motif and urged readers to appreciate life's transitory joys. Collectively, these significant individuals represent the intricate and dynamic literary, political, and cultural influences that molded the Caroline Age, leaving behind a legacy that continues to deepen our understanding of this transformative period. Conclusion. To sum up, the Caroline Age, which roughly lasted from 1625 to 1649, was a time marked by the complex interaction of political issues, religious conflicts, and creative literary manifestations. The period's literature mirrored the anxieties, aspirations, and intellectual ferment of the time, which was characterized by the conflicts between the king and parliament as well as the impact of continuous religious disputes. Metaphysical poetry remained popular, while Cavalier poets praised life's joys in a contrasting manner. This literary tapestry was woven by key figures including King Charles I, George Herbert, Robert Herrick, and Thomas Carlyle. The Caroline Age was important in molding the development of English literature because it provided a nuanced portrayal of the intricacies of the time, which would later reverberate in the upheavals of the English Civil War and beyond.